You sit down to read one page, just one. 10 minutes later, you're 3 tabs deep, your phone is face up next to you, and you can't remember the last full sentence you actually absorbed. You tell yourself something is wrong with you. Broken focus, goldfish brain. But here's the uncomfortable twist. Nothing is wrong with your brain. Something was built, on purpose, to do exactly this to you.
In 2004, researcher Gloria Mark at UC Irvine measured how long the average person stayed on a single screen before switching to something else.
The answer was 2.5 minutes. By her most recent research, that number has collapsed to just 47 seconds. With half of all observations coming in under 40, that's not a personal failure, that's a species-wide shift. And it happened in about 20 years, which, evolutionarily, is nothing. So the real question isn't why can't I focus? It's what changed? Let's start with the cost of a single interruption. Mark's research found 2 numbers that matter most: 47 seconds and 25 minutes, roughly the time it takes to return your attention fully to a task after being pulled away from it. A Slack ping, a buzz in your pocket, a single glance at a notification costs you a full recovery arc, not a few seconds. And it's worse than just losing time. Psychologist Sophie Leroy at the University of Washington studied what happens in your head after you switch tasks and found something she called attention residue. The persistence of cognitive activity about the previous task, even after you've physically stopped doing it. Part of your brain never actually leaves the last thing it was looking at. So when you check your phone for a second between paragraphs, you don't come back at 100%. You come back split. Now here's where it gets deliberate, not accidental. In 2006, a designer named Asa Raskin built a small feature for a company called Humanized, the infinite scroll. No more clicking next page. Content just keeps loading forever. He later described what it does to a user's brain. Your impulses fire faster than your judgment can catch up. He didn't stop there. Raskin has publicly said he regrets what the feature did to society, admitting he never anticipated the consequences. Why would something so simple cause that much damage? Because it borrows a mechanism straight out of a casino. Psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered decades ago that behavior isn't strengthened most by a reliable reward. It's strengthened most by an unpredictable one. Slot machines are built on this exact principle. You don't know if the next pull pays off, so you keep pulling. Every element that normally tells your brain this task is over, clocks, page breaks, stopping points, is deliberately removed. So the present moment stretches into an endless now, just like a casino floor with no windows, no clocks. Your feed is engineered the same way. The next post might be boring, it might be thrilling. You don't know until you pull, so you keep scrolling. This wasn't a side effect. It was the design goal. So picture your actual day. You wake up, and before your feet touch the floor, you've already checked your phone. Not because you decided to, but because the app is built to be the first thing your hand reaches for. Notifications queued up while you slept. Each one a tiny, unpredictable reward, waiting to be claimed. You sit down to work. Within minutes, a message arrives. You didn't ask to be interrupted, but your attention doesn't ask permission. It just goes. That's the 25-minute cost Mark measured. Paid quietly, dozens of times a day, without you ever noticing the bill. By mid-morning, you open one app for 2 minutes between tasks. There's no bottom to the feed, so there's no natural place to stop. The interface itself decided your stopping point doesn't exist. 47 seconds on this post. Switch. 40 seconds on that one. Switch again. Your brain is doing dozens of tiny sprints an hour. And sprinting was never designed to feel like rest, even though it's marketed to you as one. By afternoon, you're exhausted in a way that doesn't match how little you actually did. That's attention residue. Stacking. Fragments of every task you almost finished, still running quietly in the background, like too many browser tabs open in your skull. By evening, you tell yourself you'll read that book, or finally sit with your own thoughts. But sitting with your own thoughts uninterrupted has become one of the hardest things to do. Not because you're weak, but because for years you've been trained on a reward schedule that fires every few seconds. And silence doesn't compete with that. Here's the part that should actually make you angry, in a useful way. None of this was an accident of modern life, the way traffic or paperwork is. It was optimized. Lauren Brichter, the engineer who built Pull to Refresh, later called the mechanism itself addictive, comparing it directly to a slot machine lever. Pull, wait, reward. These weren't bugs discovered later. They were features, tested and refined, because a distracted user who checks 50 times a day is worth more in ad revenue than a focused one who checks twice. Your ancestors' environment, rewarded sustained attention. Tracking an animal for hours, watching a fire, finishing a tool. The modern environment rewards the opposite. Constant, cheap, unpredictable switching. You didn't get a worse brain. You got dropped into a worse environment for the brain you already have. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are a hunter-gatherer's brain, running inside a slot machine that fits in your pocket, built by people who studied exactly how your attention works and engineered around it. Some of them have now said so, on the record, under oath. Your attention span didn't shrink because you got weaker. It shrank because for the first time in human history, something was built whose entire business model depends on it shrinking. Fix the environment. Turn off the infinite scroll. Put the phone in another room. Give your brain one task and one stopping point, and the broken attention span you were so sure was permanent starts coming back. Almost immediately. It was never you. It was the room you've been sitting in.